thanks so much for coming around the third time and for getting matching ring pops with me. Yes. That's really fun. So 3 years ago, because this is our third hackathon, which is really crazy. 3 years ago, I had this idea to run a hackathon. And people were like, I have no idea what that is, and it was really hard to get support. And I was like, okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna fly to Toronto and go find the mayor of Calgary on a boat at Collision and see if she'll come out and talk. And my friends were like, okay, Serene, you go do that. And I was like, no, it's gonna be fine. So I flew out to Toronto, and Jyoti was speaking on a panel. And that's actually the first time that we kind of got introduced to each other. I was a little upset when I went to Toronto. When you guys were taking questions on the panel, I asked you, like, what do we do about the talent in Calgary that we're losing to companies in the US and internationally that are just offering salaries that we can't compete with? And you said to me, we're always going to have people who leave for money, who choose different values. And you told me that we need to focus on the people around us that share the values that we have and work with those people. And that advice has stayed with me ever since. And I find it's really helpful every day as I think about, the people who disagree with us, and they're just so far away from where I think I am, and I feel like it's a little bit demotivating. But when I come to events like these and I host events like these and I see all these people and I see how many people volunteer to come and help us and mentor and other people that are committed to the community, these are the kinds of things that get me going. So I want to thank you for that advice and share that with everyone. So,
and I need to share. Is this working?
I don't think it's working. I feel like maybe you can. I think it's a quiet
How about
enough
that?
room that.
No. How about we just don't use it? You can all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
here, I gave you this one for the video.
Okay, we're sharing. Oh, goodness. The other thing that I will tell you about the meetup with Serene on the boat is that we FaceTimed with her kids, which I thought was pretty cool. And what that told me is that this is someone who's a total go-getter, total entrepreneur, brilliant woman, and still understands that family time is important. And she had also told the kids that she was determined to go and meet the mayor, and they didn't believe her. And so, we proved that she was right. And I just appreciated your passion and your straightforwardness. So I'm really happy to be here tonight again.
Thank you. The few glasses of wine helped. I think when I met her, I was literally holding a bottle of wine because I had it in my head that I was going to walk around the boat with a bottle of wine and solo cups and share wine with everyone. And it seemed like a good idea at the time. So
You were popular.
it was a good time. I don't remember not having fun. So as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about today, I was thinking about the concept of everyday leadership. And it's something that came up a few years ago in a book I randomly picked off the library shelves. And it talked about you don't need to be the mayor or some big speaker or a traditional leader in the community in order to make a difference in other people's lives. And so I wanted to talk to you about the small things that everybody can do to move the needle on someone's life or in the community. So, what would the term everyday leadership mean to you?
Well, I think I look at it in two ways. To your point about what can people do every day that makes a difference. If you have held the door open for someone that you knew was struggling with a bunch of bags or someone with a disability, that's leadership. That's showing that you actually paid attention to someone who's around you. If you stood up for someone that was being bullied, that's leadership. If you actually took a stand on something that was wildly unpopular, either on social media or in person, but you knew it was the right thing to do, that's leadership. I think we all know what leadership is because you feel it. When someone does something important like that, you can tell that that person just stepped outside of being just ordinary and did something that took a little bit of courage. And I think that's ultimately what leadership is. And I also think that you can be a leader by title, and a lot of people are. You can be an elected official, you can be a senior person in an organization, but it doesn't really make you a leader if you're not following through with actions. So there's the leadership in name, and then there's the leadership in action. And the one thing that I will say right now is that leadership by name seems to be a lot more popular than leadership in action. People who should be speaking up and taking a stand on things are being incredibly quiet because they're worried about their position of leadership potentially being gone by saying something that's unpopular, by taking a side of someone who's vulnerable. And I think you all know what I'm talking about as it relates to this week. You have to sometimes have the guts to call out the things that are wrong. And sometimes you take on incredibly big people with big names and big titles in positions of leadership. They're not always right. And so sometimes it's okay to be the little guy who calls out the stuff that's going on that's wrong. And I think that's the kind of leadership we need right now more than ever before, when all of our fundamental values are being challenged, when people are challenging the fact that we need immigration, when people are challenging the fact that we need inclusion, when we are challenged that do we really need diversity? We need all of those things. And we have to be champions and leaders every day to stand up for people who otherwise would not have that opportunity.
Thank you. I really love that. I talk to my kids a little bit about that all the time, and I'm sorry I'm going to talk about you with you here. So these are my kids. They are a big part of why I do what I do. They love coming to my events because they see the type of leadership that I do. But I'm hoping that would inspire them and other people to do small acts of leadership, like standing up for your friends or standing up for what you believe in school. Those things are not easy, and I think it's really important to lead by example. We talk about that all the time, but it's really important. It's not even just about sitting in front of a room, but culture is what you'll tolerate. And you set a culture in every group that you're in, whether it's a friendship or your relationship or your family. The things that you say and the things that you don't say set the culture and the tone of that relationship. And it's really important for you to stand up for what you believe in and say something, because silence kind of implies consent. So I want to encourage you to do that. So what kind of impact do you think these small acts of leadership can make on other people around you?
I think it's really the small acts of leadership that we need right now. And I think it's those small acts that are going to get us a lot farther, because, the big acts of leadership, like, coming up with a great idea or passing a great strategy or, doing any one of those big things is pretty intangible. And it's hard to really connect with people on those big sort of surface level things. But it is incredibly compelling when someone comes up to you and says, hey, I just watched what you did, like during this hackathon process. I just watched what you did there, and that's pretty smart. I think that's something that could be a game changer. Can you tell me more about it? You're not going to forget that person, right? You're probably going to completely forget the name of someone who passed some policy that could be really great, but it's not personal. So I think the things you do that are personal in nature, whether you're the one that's reaching out to somebody or someone reaching out to you, those are the interactions that people remember. I mean, we were just having a conversation about, you look really familiar, I know I've met you, and we just had this conversation about clothes, which is funny, right? It sounds like a lot of nothing, but it opens the door to having a better conversation about the things that you value and why are you at an event commonly, and what is it that you believe in that brought you there together. So I would say, those big acts of leadership are sometimes less impactful because you don't really get that personal interaction.
I was reading about something called I think it was called the lollipop effect, about the impact you can make on someone's that day just by giving them a lollipop.
Or a ring pop.
Or a ring pop.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, ring pops are always good. I don't think there's a bad time for a ring pop. But it's those little things. Or saying thank you when in traffic, when someone lets you in. I was driving the other day and, I said thank you. I waved to the person that let me in. And I thought, we used to see that a lot more. And we don't see that as much anymore. And I was like, I'm going to keep doing it because once more people do it, then more people are going to do it. And those little things, just that little thank you, makes a huge difference. And it may or may not, but it's going to make a huge difference to me in the way that I perceive my day, and sometimes it helps. It's just those little things that like together will move the needle in the culture of the city. Anyways, Green Pops, hand them out. My kids do it all the time, whether I want them to or not. So I just gave some examples of different ways that we could show leadership. What are some ways you think that people here can show leadership to each other this weekend?
I think one of the big things is what was just said to you when we started off here. It's groups of 10, right? And like make it a group of 10. Don't just say I've got my 6 and we're all really smart and you other 4 people I don't want you in because you're probably going to mess up this project for us. They might not. So that whole idea of welcome people into the group, because you never know who might just show up and completely change things for you and put you in a really great spot. Not just to win, but also to come up with a great idea. And the thing is, the more you surround yourself with people who don't think exactly like you, the better off you're going to be. I mean, I've got Allie here from my team, and sometimes we don't see the world the same way. She's got very different experiences than I do. We're different ages, we grew up in different cities, we did different things when we were young, and she's not afraid to say to me, yeah, that's not a bad idea, it's not the greatest idea, and I'll say, okay, well, how do we make it better? And then we'll have a conversation about it. Or sometimes I'll say, you don't look like this is something that's sitting well with you. And she'll say, well, now that you've asked me, here's what I really think, and this is what I'm worried about. And sometimes I'll say, well, you don't need to worry about it for this reason. And she'll say, okay, well, good, I feel better about it. Or sometimes I'll say, wow, I never even thought about that. So if you surround yourself with allies, they become allies. See what I just did there? Always make sure you've got people around you in your life, in your teams at work, in your teams, in your competitions that challenge you. Because if you only surround yourself with people that go, that is the best thing I've ever heard, you won't grow and you'll be bound to make some mistakes that you could have avoided if you had some other ways of thinking surrounding you. So I would say that that's one of the biggest things you can do for yourselves this weekend, is just step outside of what you're comfortable with and invite in somebody that you typically wouldn't work with, and let's see how it goes. And it's only the weekend. If it doesn't work out, it'll be fine.
I'd add on to that and say be that person that challenges others as well. You can challenge someone's ideas without being a jerk about it. I go up to my team all the time and I'm like, I have a great idea, like literally every day. And they are not always great ideas. And my team's like, okay, let's hear it. And sometimes we're like, that's pretty easy to try. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, that's fine, we can scrap it. So be the person that's like, yeah, that sounds like an idea we could try. Let's do that. Because you can make the difference and be somebody who's open. Because there are lots of people who have great ideas and are afraid to share them.
I have one more thought.
Okay.
Yeah. One more thought on that. Sometimes it's about how you think that allows you to communicate a certain way. So if you know what kind of a thinker you are, you can communicate out a message in a way that somebody else will pick it up who doesn't think like you. And maybe that sounds weird, but do you all have someone in your life that needs to know, if I take step 1, it will lead me to step 2, and then it'll be step 3, and then step 4, and then I will achieve my result? Has anyone ever met anybody like this? Yeah. Is anyone that person? You have to have that linear understanding, right? That's okay. I don't think like that. That's not how my brain works at all. In my brain, there's like any number of things going on at once. There's the issue of homelessness that we have to solve. There's the downtown recovery. There are some policy pieces that we need to work on. And all of these things are swirling around at any given time. And then someone will hand me a problem. And that'll take up the forefront. But I pull in all of the other things that are happening, and I kind of put this thing together. But I used to not be able to express that to people. And I tried to fit in with that linear model, and I tried to do if I take step 1, I'll get to step 2. I can't do that. I see the world differently. I function differently. And there's nothing wrong with the way other people do it, and there's nothing wrong with the way I do it. If you know yourself, you can explain that to people. And I'm going to use Allie again. I had never been able to communicate that to the team, and what drove them absolutely bonkers was when we did strategic planning sessions. And they wanted to have what a proper strategic planning session would have. This is our mandate, here's our vision, here's how we're gonna execute it, here's the action steps, and here's the timeline. Well, I got kind of bored after the mandate, right? And in my head, I already knew, okay, if this is the mandate, if this is what we wanna do, here's how I'm gonna tackle it. And then I just kind of tuned out and I was done. I was ready to go for lunch or whatever it was. And I would leave all of them to sort of sort through all of this until I started pulling out what was in my head and explaining it to them properly. So know how you think so you can communicate it to other people. That would be like a really good thing to learn about yourself.
I should probably figure that one out.
That's fine.
I was like, okay, we're gonna run a hackathon, and Joanna's like, okay, Serene, what are we gonna do? I'm like, well, I'm gonna go to Toronto. Okay. Another thing I wanted to leave you guys with is see the weekend through. It's gonna be really challenging, and I wanna make sure that you guys know you have lots of support. So we have 14 mentors tomorrow. That's more than we've ever had. Use the mentors, talk to them, talk to your team. You don't have to deliver something perfect, but I'd like to see everybody deliver something. I've only made one person cry in 3 years, so if you're gonna
That's a
cry,
good average.
do it privately. No, I'm kidding. That's fine. You can cry with me. I accept you. But if you are struggling and you don't know what to do next, please come and reach out to one of us. We'd love to help you. That's why we run these events. It's not about perfection. It's really about the experience, learning new things, meeting new friends, and seeing a project through to the end.
And there's no perfect.
Right? There's no
Like
perfect.
There's no such thing as perfect, and perfect gets in the way of possibility, so don't try to strive for perfection. If you've got something that's a really good idea and you're most of the way there, just run with it. And if you're not finished, you're not finished, that's life, but don't just try to cram it into some form that you think other people are gonna wanna see, because there is no such thing as perfection. Like, if we haven't learned that by 2024, then we really haven't come that far. And don't be afraid to stumble, like, don't be afraid to make a mistake. Let me tell you about mistakes. Has anyone heard of the single-use bylaw? Okay.
It was used at least once.
It was used at least once, yeah. So we didn't get the whole thing right. We got a lot of components of it right. Like, trying to reduce waste was a really good idea. Trying to make sure that we were making consumers aware of, oh yeah, I guess if I don't need the condiments, I shouldn't take them. They're just gonna end up in the trash, things like that. We did pretty well. I don't know that we had enough of a communications campaign and an education campaign with the businesses and consumers jointly. I think we could have done that differently. I think we could have implemented the bag fee at a different time. And you know what? It's okay to say that. You're not gonna get everything right out of the gate. Sometimes you gotta go back and tinker with it a little bit more. Like, the first cell phones that were ever invented were not the greatest things on earth, but boy, were they exciting when they first launched, right? And now we see iterations over time of things getting better. So don't get in your own way, and don't let things get in your head that make you feel like it's not possible. Just embrace it, run with it, and see what happens.
I can't top that, so I'm gonna close it off. Thank you so much for coming out every single year and supporting us. I know that the community really appreciates it. I get really amazing feedback. They love seeing you here, supporting the tech talent community. Lots of people come out every year to see this, and thank you so much. You're an inspiration to me and so many people here.